Hello, Rocky Ridge students. This is Mr. Johnson. We are going to read Chapter 3 of Lunch Money. Chapter 3, The Perfect Hammer. The very next day, Greg had started selling candy and gum in the shadow of the sliding board during lunch recess. Gum was 10 cents a stick. He sold tropical fruit starburst at 3 for a quarter. Sales were brisk, and Greg was making some money, but it was risky. Kids took candy and gum into their classrooms, which was against school rules. And if any one kid had turned him in, Greg would have found himself having a little chat with the principal, Mrs. Davenport. So Greg began to look around for other things he could sell. He thought about ads on TV when he watched his favorite shows. What did they always try to sell kids besides candy and breakfast cereals? Simple, toys. Greg did some research on the internet and quickly discovered dozens of companies that sold toys and souvenirs and gadgets at incredibly low prices. You need to do what? That's what Greg's mom had said when he told her he needed to borrow her credit card. And Greg had exclaimed, I need to buy some toys, not for me. They're to sell to other kids to make some money. This company had great stuff. It was real cheap. But I need to order with a credit card, and I can't pay. Oh, I can pay you back with cash right away, if that's what you're worried about. His mom was actually worried about something else. She thought Greg spent too much time thinking about making money. Just a few days before, she had asked her husband, is it something we've done to make Greg like this? All he ever thinks about is getting rich. I want him to just enjoy being a kid, hanging out with his friends more, having more fun. But her husband had told her, as far as I can see, Greg's definitely a kid. He likes to read and draw, he plays sports, and he gets good grades. I'd say he's pretty well balanced, and he seems to be having plenty of fun. This money thing is probably just a phase. Besides, there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money or working hard. If that's what you call a problem, then I wish some other people in this family had it too. So his mom had used her credit card to help Greg place an order for the Knick Knack Novelty Company. He ordered 144 miniature troll dolls, tiny plastic creatures with big eyes, long, bright hair, blue, red, orange, and green. Then Greg paid his mom $12 in cash to cover the cost of the credit card order, $10.50 for the trolls, and $1.50 for the shipping costs. The little trolls were a huge hit at school. An instant fad. Greg sold all 144 of them in 3 days for a quarter each, taking in a total of $36. $24 of that money was pure profit. But Greg didn't call it profit. He liked to think of it as new money. Greg had taken $12 he had already had, and that was old money, and that's what he had used. And that he had used his old money to buy 144 trolls for about 8 cents apiece. Then he sold each one for 25 cents. So he had made back all $12 of his old money, plus $24 of new money. And what did Greg do with his new money? He used to place another order, bigger order, with Knick Knack Novelty Company. 48 more trolls, 48 miniature super balls, 24 jack and ball sets, 48 sticky stretchy spiders, 36 rings, 12 for boys, 24 for girls. But the new items hadn't sold so well. After 2 weeks only, about 2/3 of the second order was gone. Greg had started to get bored with the product, so had Greg. There was another problem. During the third period language arts, one morning he'd been called to the school office, and then he had been shown into the principal's office. The first thing Greg noticed was the toys on her desk. Mrs. Davenport followed his eyes and nodded at the 4 miniature super balls and the wad of sticky, stretchy spiders. She said, I got the super balls from Miss Kingsing. She caught Ed Connors and Hector Vega bouncing them and hitting the lights in the ceiling of the gym. And I got the spiders from Mr. Percy, the custodian. He said these things have left oily marks on almost every window in the school. And Mr. Percy tells me that all these kids he asked said they bought them from you. Is that true? Greg nodded. Why are you selling toys at school? He asked. Greg shrugged. To make some money. And because they're fun. Mrs. Davenport said, those tiny trolls I saw all over the school a few weeks ago, were you the one selling those too? Greg nodded. The principal said, well, I admire your initiative, but starting right now, you may not sell any more toys at school. The boys and the girls already bring plenty of other nuisance items to school, and they do not need extra help from you. Is that clear? Greg nodded and said yes. Very well. You may return to your class. Ask Mrs. Ogden for a pass. Walking back to language arts that day, Greg hadn't been discouraged. He hadn't even been unhappy. In fact, he faced the fact that the novelty toy business had been doomed from the start. For one thing, kids usually get tired of toys quickly. And Greg also realized it was amazing that his toy sales hadn't been shut down even sooner. If you sell toys to kids at school, well, they're kids. They will play with them. And the toys and schools are a bad mix. Still, even though he hadn't sold all the toys from his second order, he still made a small profit. Greg carefully reviewed what the principal had told him, and again he saw a bright side. Because Mrs. Davenport had not said that he must stop selling things at school, she had just said that he had to stop selling toys. So all he needed was something else. He could tell at school something that wouldn't upset the teachers or Mrs. Davenport or the custodian. Even better, he would get to sell something they would actually approve of. But what? What? The answer came to Greg in the first few days of summer, began turning 5th grade into a fading memory. The answer was so simple. It seemed absolutely foolproof. It would take some hard work if you wanted to have everything ready for September for the start of 6th grade. But hard work was something Greg had never been afraid of, especially if the rewards were great enough. He expected the rewards to be outstanding. He expected the rewards to be astonishing. School was like a giant piggy bank loaded with quarters. Greg was convinced that his new product would be like a hammer, the perfect hammer. He was going to crack the school wide open. And that is chapter 3 of Lunch Money. If you would like to guess what you think that Greg is going to sell what he's going to make over the summer and sell at the beginning of 6th grade, you can put that in the comments. And stay tuned for lesson 4 coming soon. Chapter 4. Have a good night.